if you were going to pin me down, I'd pick Naked Evil every time. It's very releasing to be an unequivocal bastard. And to laugh about it the minute somebody says cut.
Another one from the floor.
Well, clearly we're all fans of your work on Star Wars and what you've done with Palpatine. I'm actually curious because we've all heard the story about how you got your role as Palpatine. How did you get your role as the Doctor, the womanizing Doctor in Sleepy Hollow?
I met Tim Burton and Scott Rudin, and they said, would you like to play the Doctor? And it was nice because it was, you know, all of us actors, I think by and large, want to play as many different types as possible. And if you just play, you know, a serious play, you want to do comedy, and if you just play an evil character, you want to play somebody who's halfway decent. So that was an opportunity to create a completely different kind of character. And he was hopelessly corrupt in his own way, which was a terrible Doctor. But that again is a kind of film which is, and I love doing it, and there were a lot of very fine actors in that, you know, apart from the very fine Johnny Depp. It was very funny to do it. It was a film that was always on the edge of comedy and something that was serious. And that was fun to do. And it was great to do something that wasn't at all recognizable like Palpatine.
Well, you've had and continue to have a great career. What are you passionate about now and working on now?
I've just done a play by Brecht called Galileo, about his, who Galileo was. We continue to evolve and revolve as a result of what he discovered. But when he discovered what really happens to this world in relation to the planets, the Roman Church, the Catholic Church, didn't want him to say that because it meant that God wasn't at the center of the universe, and by default now there was the Catholic Church. So he had to recant his theories, which he did, but he went on practicing them in private. And that was another a sort of arrogant person, but he was a genius and passionate. And it's a great play, and it also has great moments of comedy. And I did it at the Royal Shakespeare Company with a wonderful company of actors, and we're going to do it again next year, touring in England, and then perhaps ending up in the West End. So that'll be exciting. And then there's an American play that I can tell you nothing about, but I might get a chance to play it in America on stage, which I haven't done before. So please come along and criticize my accent.
Would you tell us if we promise not to tell?
No, I can't.
Okay. Just a couple more from the floor. Hello.
Hello. Palpatine aside, is there another role that you would have been interested in playing in Star Wars?
No, I've got the best one.
When you did the prequels, it became a very, very physical role for you, a lot of fights.
Oh yeah,
what was
yes,
that?
I always do my own stunts, I hope you do that. Every single moment, especially the one with Yoda. And he's difficult because he doesn't show. And I've never worked with Yoda, actually, let me tell you. No, Yoda was entirely digitally realized then, except Frank still continued to do the voice, thank goodness. But no, I did very few of the physical side of Phantom Sith, although I did learn all the moves and did them, I'm sure, grotesquely in front of the camera so they could get the top half right, my facial expressions. But I was fortunate to have a great stunt double, a guy called Michael Byrne, who even looked a bit like me, which is not always the case of stunt doubles, and could act a bit too, which is usually not the case with stunt doubles. So I was very fortunate. I was also fighting Sam Jackson, of course, who was very good and very patient. So that helped. But the real star fighters, as you would know really from that movie, were Ewan and Hayden. But you wouldn't know how good they were. You could see they were quite good. And of course, the fight necessarily, because of editing and the excitement of the narrative storyline, has to be cut up into various pieces. But I saw them do it right the way through many times, and they were absolutely extraordinary. In fact, I said, when we were going around selling the movie, they should go on the road and they should show everybody how brilliant that fight was. And they worked their proverbial butts off every day, going in, rehearsing it, rehearsing it, rehearsing it. And they're both master swordsmen of Olympic standard, I would say. I obviously was too in awe of them to even think about competing. But thank God for Michael Byrne.
We've just got time for one more audience question. So who has like what feels like an epic wrap-up audience question? Not to, this gentleman, does it feel like an epic wrap-up audience question? Well, let's do you and then we'll do you really quick, but we'll keep it pretty short.
While filming Return of the Jedi, what was the attitude between actors and crew about the prequels before they were made? Were there something nebulous that you had no idea about? What were your ideas?
Yes, exactly. Nobody. I don't think George had really. I mean, he always knew the backstory, but he didn't realize, I think, that Vader would become such an extraordinary character, that the world, would react to him the way that they did. And he thought that would be a backstory worth telling. But we had no feeling about this when we were doing Return of the Jedi, and George worked very hard on those 3 movies and needed a break, and indeed took one. I later found also that he had been thinking about continuing the saga, but he was waiting for the technology to catch up. He wanted to make sure that Star Wars continued to be pioneering in terms of film technology and what movies could do. And he thought that really wouldn't come to any kind of fruition for at least 10 years. So in a sense, he was playing a waiting game. He was waiting for the technology to catch up with his imagination. And of course, eventually it did. But when we did the first film, we did Phantom Menace, that was a rehearsal for quite a lot of that technology. Because no one has ever really used it before. He didn't realize how time-consuming it would be, how expensive it would be. And that's why Yoda didn't immediately become a digitized creature, because it was too complicated and too expensive. So it's still a puppet in that film. Although I always thought he might go back and change that, but I guess maybe not now. So the Phantom Menace in many ways was a learning process. I dare say that was true for everyone who worked on it, on the technical side and in the editing room. And then the next movie, Attack of the Clones, I think I'm right in saying it was the first movie of that scale that was shot entirely digitally. And for the first time, we were all seeing large screens of what we'd just done. There was no such thing as video playback. What you saw was what you were going to get. Of course, it would be treated and made better and so on. But you'd be seeing the actual thing in playback and not a small video version of it. No is the answer to your question. No one, probably including George, had really thought much about the prequels when we did Return of the Jedi.
Sir, your epic question.
First of all, I just want to tell you that you scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So and the generation after you are kind of these kids too. So I think it's fitting if you could give us a line in the voice of the evil emperor saying, "You will join the dark side, or you will die."
That would be a climactic way to go. Yes, maybe I should say something else. No, all right, I'll say that. Go ask. Yeah, whatever that. Okay. Yes, the gentleman down here didn't get at, so I'll take it. But it maybe subsumes your question as well, which is,